we are talking OpenClaw today. What can people expect if they watch to the end of this conversation?
We'll cover the basics, what's OpenClaw, the prerequisites.
Do you think the comparison of OpenClaw to Jarvis from Iron Man is an apt comparison?
We'll find out when we look at the names of my Hetzner servers.
I feel like a proud parent right now. And how profound is OpenClaw in terms of what it offers to people?
The thing with OpenClaw that made it catch fire was
CJ Hess, welcome to the show.
Alex Lieberman, thank you for having me.
Okay, so we are talking OpenClaw today. What can people expect if they watch to the end of this conversation?
Yeah, so we've prepped kind of a guide here that we're going to walk through today. We'll cover the basics, what's OpenClaw, the prerequisites. Then really we want to go 0 to 1 with having an OpenClaw set up without spending a ton of money on a Mac Mini or wasting a bunch of time trying to do it through some provider. This is going to be the bare metal guide to do it safely and securely on a VPS through Hetzner for as little as $5 a month. Then we're going to get an OpenClaw set up and we're going to start to play around with it. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have time to show a couple of cool use cases that I've personally done, as well as some that I've seen online, and we can kind of discuss how you would go about setting up things like that. So prereqs, basically what we're going to need, VPS provider, Hetzner Cloud, but there's a ton of providers out there. I personally like Hetzner. I've used it forever. They're a European company, so when you get invoiced, they send you an email that says, "Sir CJ, your bill is here." Then we're going to set up this private network. That's going to be Tailscale. This essentially gives you a way to connect to each of the machines, but without having to use the open internet as a way to connect. Essentially makes a walled garden of the computers that you want to be able to connect to. We're going to set up messaging. OpenClaw is great because it has a ton of messaging providers. I've been dabbling with trying to actually transfer over to Discord, but right now Telegram's my main driver for my agents. So we're going to set it up that way. It's also the fastest and easiest. And then the last thing is we're going to need an API key from a popular provider. Fortunately, Anthropic shut off the Claude Code subscription token. But for this, we're actually going to use a Codex token. So I'll log in with my Codex account, and then we'll have that all set up.
Cool.
Sweet. First thing we're going to do, going to try and speed run through this part. Going to click here to add a server. Really not much extra you have to do here. You can pick from any of these cost optimized or regular performance. One thing to note is that you do need a decent amount of RAM to run OpenClaw. 4 should be fine, but I usually err on the side of caution and grab 8. And then if you're in the US, you're going to want to choose US East or US West. If you're somewhere else, you're going to want to choose essentially the closest one to you. These change depending on where Hetzner wants to serve exactly where the box is from. But in this case, I'm going to choose US East. And then there's not much more you really have to touch here. Ubuntu is set up. You want both these public networking ports. These are essentially the doors for how we're going to get into the box. And then the only other thing that is mentioned in this guide on how to set it up that I've already set up is the SSH key. This is basically the password to log into your virtual server. Volumes, firewalls, backups, nothing to worry about here.
And sorry, just one question on SSH key. Yeah. Is that effectively is that the key that other applications are using to get into the server? Who uses the SSH key in this context?
Yeah, so the SSH key is basically a password between your computer and the virtual server.
I see.
And in theory, when you're open to the open internet, anything can happen. But in theory, that makes it secure so that you can SSH and actually log into and then have a terminal that's inside that virtual server. And only you can do that. Now, keeping anything on the open internet is scary. So we're going to want to lock it down. But this is kind of that first security measure to give you a password to try and block people from logging into your machine.
Cool.
Volumes, firewalls, backups, placement groups, labels, all those we can skip down to here. Alex, do you have a cool name for this OpenClaw? I can't use Jarvis.
Let's use Ron.
Love it. Ron OpenClaw. Sweet. So now that we have him set up, I'm missing something, I can tell. Oh, I didn't click up here. Great. We have that selected.
And so basically for you paid for the second tier. You said that the user could pay for the first tier. That'd probably be enough RAM, but you played it safe, paid for the second one. And that's like what? A little over $10 a month.
Yeah. I mean, this will come out to literally $9.99. You can up it. You can go bigger, but most use cases, you really don't need it. It actually looks like I've run out of my IPs. So luckily, I do have a server that is already set up that I have not provisioned yet, and that is Jarvis. So we're going to use Jarvis here. I'm actually going to hop in here. Again, note all these IPs should probably get blurred, but I'm going to hop in here, copy these IPs, and then I'm going to hop to this Claude. So one thing that I would recommend when you're setting this stuff up is to actually have a documentation folder on your local computer. Your local computer is going to be how you're connecting to everything with OpenClaw through SSH. And again, that's just logging into your server so that you can run commands on it. If you're not familiar with Claude Code, this might be a great time to try. I know we already have a bunch of resources on using Claude Code, but I'm going to use Claude Code here to actually help me do the setup. This guide that we have back here, I've already copy and pasted, and I've given it to Claude to say, Claude's complimenting the chef, I guess, but I gave it all the instructions and what we want to do. So I'm going to paste in that information about my IP address and the name of the box. And I'm going to say, great, set this up and tell me when we are able to SSH into the VPS. This is essentially saying, all right, Claude, I need you to log into this. Here are the credentials. You're going to go in, you're going to lock it down, and it's going to set up all of those security protocols that were already listed above. Great.
And just a question here, how does it know? Because I basically see, okay, you set up your VPS. You have the IP, you have the information about, like, I see you have the name, you have the IP, you give that to Claude and you say, tell me when we were able to SSH into the VPS. Basically, when can my computer get access to the virtual computer? Mm-hmm. How does it know here? Where did you give it the direction to like start hardening? Is that just using the walkthrough? Like basically the walkthrough you provided it's just going on to the next step of the walkthrough?
Yep. So Claude didn't exactly do what I wanted it to here, but that's fine. Right now, all it did was it tried to make sure that we're able to SSH into the machine. It looks like we're good to. The box is live. It's here. We can access it. Then the next thing it's asking me is if we want to set up Tailscale. Tailscale basically gives you your own private internet. It's secure and it allows you to connect to different machines without being accessible from the public internet. This is kind of stage one of security where we really want to isolate that VPS and your computer so that no one just out in the wild can actually access your server or any of the data on it with your OpenClaw.
Love it.
So I'm going to ask it to set up Tailscale. It's actually going to log into that VPS, install Tailscale, and then it will shoot me back a link where I just have to confirm it. One confirmation step after this is installed, and then we'll essentially have Tailscale on the machine. Next couple steps are going to cut it off from the open internet, set it up so that we're only connecting with Tailscale, and then add some further security measures. At that point, we'll be able to log in and start actually setting up OpenClaw.
And so just so I understand, like when you're using Tailscale, my visual here is that it basically just creates this like safety bubble around the OpenClaw. What does that mean in practice? Does it basically just mean that like maybe you have a good example for what Tailscale actually does that like in context is helpful from a security perspective?
Mm-hmm. So essentially the way that SSH works is it lets us log into the machine with that password. But when we're doing that across the open internet, which means that this virtual private server with its IP address is accessible from the open internet. That being said, unless you have the password, you can't get in. But I'm certain if we looked at that box, it's probably getting bombarded by bots The second you spin something up, bots try to attack it and they try to get in. And I've even had VPSs in the past with nothing sensitive on them get kind of compromised in this way. I had a dev server running once and someone put a crypto miner on it and it became this whole thing, but eventually I was able to just turn it off. But Tailscale, kind of from this diagram, basically what it does is it makes your virtual server invisible to the public internet. So it blocks it out and it makes sure that only whatever devices you have on your Tailscale network can access it and nothing else can really reach it. Plus it's encrypted and it kind of saves you from all just the low hanging fruit of security issues by having something on the open internet.
Cool.
Sweet. Great. Claude's giving me the auth link. I'm going to open this real quick. This is probably another place to blur. Great. We're connected. Oh, amazing. And Claude's just taking it away. Great. So now what's happening here is we actually get a new IP address for Jarvis that is on the Tailscale network as opposed to the open internet. So essentially we had an address that was open to everyone. Think of it as the address of your house, but it's on Google Maps. Now Jarvis is in a gated community and no one else knows where he lives except for the other people in the community. No one in the public knows this address or can even access it.
Love it.
Great.
It's like that gated community in the Bahamas where all the celebrities live and no one else knows who's there other than the other celebrities.
Exactly. Jarvis is a celebrity now. Cool. Going to try and log into him here. In the meantime, kind of want to hop to some of these other concepts and just like best practices to harden the server and what we're going to do here. I don't think we're going to go through all of these just to avoid all the config and setup and hoops to jump through. But unfortunately, you do kind of have to take those steps to actually make this truly secure. All of these steps are kind of classic cybersecurity principles. And one thing I even like to do occasionally is I run a codex and I say, codex, red team these boxes, try and get in, try and break in, find any security flaw you can. And it's actually been really good at saying, hey, I wasn't able to get in, but here's a place where you have a lot of attack surface and here's how you can harden it. And I'm no, expert in this security stuff. I know the basics, but it's been really helpful in giving me confidence that we've fully secured this VPS and that no one else can get it.
So we're going to share this in the show notes, but just because I know you don't want to go deep in all of the security hardening stuff. For someone like I saw, one of the things is automatic security updates. Another one is firewall. How should people be setting this up since you're not going through each one right now? Is it literally as simple as just like if they tell Claude to ingest this guide and do it, Claude will take them through all the steps?
Yeah. I think we can probably go live basically right here. But cool. As far as these security things go, we won't go through line by line, nor am I even going to have Claude set these up on the one we just set up. But overall, if you give these kind of guides and descriptions, Claude will actually set this up. And this includes a lot of hardening. So you can kind of see in this diagram here that we have your VPS, this Tailscale network. It's going to block it off from the public internet. This firewall is even going to further block any public inbound traffic. We're going to lock it down with SSH hardening. This is going to give you keys only. It's going to make sure that traffic can only go from your computer to the machine. Other machines can't access each other. We're going to have some intrusion prevention. Basically, if some public address tries to get in, we're going to use this package that automatically bans IP addresses. And we're going to set up auto updates on the box so that if any new operating system updates come out, it just automatically stays up to date. Classic security principle. No single layer is bulletproof. So we're just going to layer them on and make sure that this is fully secure. And hopefully these instructions are easy enough to just lob to Claude and have it set everything up for you. And then you kind of come out the end with a VPS that's fully provisioned and secure that only you can access.
Love it.
Now we're on to the fun stuff.
It's time for Ron.
It's time for Ron. We're going to bring Ron online. So What I usually do in this step is I'll have Claude handle installing OpenClaw, installing the dependencies, making sure that we have Node on the server, just so that we have everything to go, or everything that we need to actually run OpenClaw. And then I'm going to log in and do the onboarding.
And my friend was wondering, what is Node?
Node is just a fancy thing that runs code that OpenClaw needs. It's just a JavaScript runtime that lets you use JavaScript code. OpenClaw is written in TypeScript, so it needs something on that server. Think of this computer that we just bought, this VPS, as a brand new computer that just came into this world, and it has nothing on it. So we have to install all the dependencies first.
Cool.
I'm going to say skip the security for now. Log in and set up Node and OpenClaw. Don't run setup or onboarding commands. Just install it. Great. And then over here, I'm going to SSH into Jarvis. This is actually going to give us a terminal inside Jarvis. So we're actually on that machine, which is pretty cool. In here, we can run commands. We can work with OpenClaw. We're actually going to run the OpenClaw kind of CLI interface and chat with the bot as we get it set up. And this will take a second over here. There's a nice little install script from OpenClaw that automatically installs all the dependencies.
Love it.
I have that link.
And for that, like, did you have to feed from your doc into Claude what these install scripts were, or is Claude able to just find them?
This started as a battle of me going online and trying to figure everything out. And then you can see at the top, if I scroll all the way up to the top of this chat, I actually dumped the whole guide into it. So it knows all these steps from this guide. Cool. And that's been super helpful to me in just spinning up new ones quickly. But I will say the first time I set it up, it was a bit of a maze. And that's what we're here for today. We want to get everyone watching set up as fast as possible.
Awesome.
Sweet. So we're in. We can now hatch Ron/Jarvis.
I was going to say Ron's going through an identity crisis ever since you had to switch who he was in Tailscale, but I'm going to keep calling him Ron.
Yeah, we'll go with Ron. We can actually, you get to name him. So there is a thing, it's probably not going to show here, but they refer to it as being hatched. Yeah, it doesn't say on that setup command, but when you first install OpenClaw, it says, how do you want to hatch your claw?
I love it.
So we're going to hatch him. There's a quick command called OpenClaw onboard. I'm actually just going to zoom in here. It's going to ask us a couple questions. It's going to get us set up with our account, and then we're going to be off to the races.
And just so for someone who's setting up OpenClaw in lockstep with you, do they have to basically go in their terminal and do this command, this OpenClaw onboard command within the VPS, or could you just have Claude do this?
You have to do it in the VPS. So you're going to want to install it on the VPS, log into it, and then run this. This does take a second to boot up. And then the reason you're going to want to run this on the VPS and then go through the steps there is because you need to log into a few things. You need to make sure that everything is set up. And honestly, the onboarding is kind of fun. You can just make config files and throw them on the machine and it'll work. But I actually quite like the experience of going through and chatting with it the first time to make sure it understands who it is, who I am, and what we're going to set up.
Yep.
Cool. Always recommend onboarding mode, quick start. Then you've got a ton of model providers to choose from. I've been Claude through and through, but recently with the Codex OAuth and the Codex rate limits, like the actual token limits that you get, I've been preferring those for my OpenClaws just because I can get so much more usage. So I'm going to log in here with a Codex token. Essentially, all of these are going to look roughly like this, where you get some URL to go to, and then you're going to log into whatever account you chose. Then you're going to come back here and paste some token. So I'm going to hop to this link. Once you're logged in, you'll get a link. This is going to be a redirect link, and it's not going to work on your computer because it's trying to redirect to the link that actually came from the other machine. And your browser and your computer can't exactly talk between each other like that. So we're just going to copy this link, and we're actually going to give this back to the OpenClaw here. It's going to take that redirect and get everything set up. You can choose a model.
Is there a model that you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, 5.3 codecs seems to work really well in this OpenClaw harness. I did set one up with an Anthropic API key, and Opus, I think, Opus is the GOAT in agentic environments, but the problem right now is just price. You can't use your Cloud Code subscription, and you're paying a massive API price. So for me, 5.3 codecs does fine, and I can't hit my codecs usage if I want to.
Cool.
Now we get to set up our first channel. We're going to do Telegram. And then what's really cool is you get some steps here. You're going to open Telegram and actually message this account called BotFather. And BotFather is going to get you set up with the Telegram integration. So I'm going to hop over to my Telegram, and I've already got a conversation with BotFather. And I'm going to say /new bot.
Is BotFather owned by OpenClaw, or is this like a third-party Telegram bot that just like people use as a service?
I'm not sure. In my head it was OpenClaw, but thinking about it now, I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if
honestly, that's why I was curious. I saw 5.9 million monthly users, and I was curious if those are all OpenClaw or other people.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, this has enough functionality that I bet it might just be a Telegram thing.
Yeah, cool.
So we're choosing a name for the bot.
Ron.
He's going to be Ron. Now you have to pick a username for it that ends in bot. I found that most of these are taken, so we're going to do
Ron John Bot. Ron John Bot.
Ron John Bot's got to be taken. Wow, we got Ron John.
Let's
go. Awesome. Cool. So now we get this token, and this token is what actually lets us use this to hook up our OpenClaw to Telegram. So I'm going to take this token and I'm going to put it here. That's our bot token. And it looks like it worked fine there. Great. Now we're on to some of the config stuff. So skills are super, super helpful in OpenClaw environments. I kind of skip them only because Peter has set up so many of these integrations with either pieces of software that he's worked closely with or exist or that he's built himself. And a lot of these I personally don't use or don't need. Sometimes I set up the GitHub one. One time I set up the Nano Banana one just because I wanted it to send me more pictures. But generally, I skip this because you can always come back to it and add the skills when you want and how you want them.
And just to clearly break this down, these skills that the creator of OpenClaw created, like how should someone be thinking about these? Like, for example, the Nano Banana Pro skill, what does that actually do in practice? What does that allow you to do?
Yeah, any of these skill files are just a markdown file that kind of lay out a specific workflow or how to use a tool and kind of give the agent guidance. Almost think of it as like, for a human, it would be a set of instructions or a YouTube tutorial. For the agent, It's just like a markdown file. So there's all these like different integrations that it can use and work with and do things for you with these tools. I much prefer rolling with no skills at the start, and then per claw, depending on what we're doing, I kind of walk through a manual workflow. Let's say we're working on some project and we're doing a GitHub PR. I would walk it through. Okay, you're going to make your changes. You're going to push them. Then that's actually going to show up in a preview deployment, just like a preview environment. It's not deployed on production, but it's somewhere where you can test. Then you can use, this browser use skill to go test it. And then once it's tested, you can ship that to production. So that flow I would do manually a few times. And then I would say, based on this workflow, make a repeatable skill for yourself so you know this flow in the future. And I've just found that be much more customizable and functional for what I want to be doing with OpenClaw.
Cool. Awesome.
Cool. So we're going to skip that. There's a bunch of API keys you can dump into this to give you access to Google Places, Nano Banana, Notion, OpenAI, 11 Labs. There's a ton of things you can set up. The 11 Labs one is kind of cool because you can have your agent actually talk to you. But a lot of these things are more, when you really want to get deep into the use cases and play around with it. For our setup, we definitely don't need these. Now, hooks, I like to enable all of these hooks. These hooks are very helpful because what these do is they automatically load context and automatically save things like commands or sessions that you're in to memory. One of the other big things that OpenClaw, I think, has found a novel approach to is long-term memory in these agents. And I think it's done a great job. So we want to enable all of these.
And can you just explain what a hook is exactly?
Yeah, a hook, if you think of a skill as a set of instructions that the agent uses to do something, a hook is a little piece of code. I don't have a great analogy, actually. It's a little piece of code that runs when the agent does something very specific. So if we look at boot, there's a boot.md file, and this runs when you start your claw. So maybe every time you start it or it, kicks back into action, you want it to do something right away when it boots, you would put instructions in bootmd.
I see.
You can also have additional instructions that come in right away. You can also have this one that logs all command events to a central file so that as it's doing stuff, it's recorded somewhere automatically. And then the claw can actually go back and reference that if it needs to see, hey, how did we do this before? It can actually reference that audit file and then make use of it for future.
I don't know if this is accurate or the right analogy, but almost like when you're saying this, what it comes off as to me is like these are almost like conditional or situational skills relevant to like your actual computer or like relevant to the machine. Like almost like I think of like skills in the way you're showing them before are relating to other applications and how your OpenClaw, it basically acts with and around these other applications. Whereas like these are specific to the OpenClaw itself and they're conditional based on certain events.
Yeah. Yeah. So these just get fired when things happen. And cool. Sometimes they're injecting context and sometimes they're just saving what the claw does so that later it can reference it.
Cool.
So we're in. Everything is set up. What it's doing now is installing the gateway. The gateway is essentially this other core piece of OpenClaw that gives the agents a channel they can talk through. Think of it as a big group chat. And in that group chat, it can be your Telegram, your Discord, your Slack, but it can also be the main agent fires off a sub agent and the sub agent has to ask it a question and it talks back. It's basically this main bus where all the communications between your main agent, your sub agents, and you go through. And that's what's running 24/7, kicking off those heartbeat runs, keeping it alive, and really having it work while you sleep.
And why is that setup important? Like why does that make the specific, like OpenClaw specifically, more powerful, this kind of like team of agents that are talking to each other?
Mm-hmm. So this is, I think a lot of the products and tools right now are trying to solve this like agent collaboration communication problem. The thing that I love about the gateway is it's so simple. I think there's actually a diagram over here of it working. Maybe not. I might have hallucinated that. But basically this gateway is so simple where you have your inputs. Your inputs are either you writing from Telegram, Discord, whatever messaging setup you've connected. The inputs can also be other agents, and that flows through a queue. That queue then gets picked up by the main agent. It does something based on the message, and then it can send messages back out, whether that's a reply to you on Telegram or a reply to you on Discord or a reply to a sub-agent. It's just this bus that lets anything come in, and then the main agent orchestrate anything going out any of the other channels.
Cool. Okay, it's time to hatch. Let's hatch, Ron.
I do like to hatch in the TUI. The web UI, I think, could use some work. So if you're familiar with Cloud Code in your terminal, this is going to feel very familiar. We're going to hatch. All that hatching does is text the bot, wake up, my friend.
I feel like a proud parent right now.
I know. Ron is here. So there's kind of a flow that's set up in the very beginning. We're not going to go through like deep detailed prompts in this right now, but we have gone from 0 to 1 and we have an OpenClaw set up. And following all those steps, we'd have it on a secure box that we can only access. And now we just kind of get to play with our new OpenClaw. So real quick, I'm just going to say, you are Ron. You are my personal art finder. You are to go online and find photos of art and send me them and make a comprehensive profile on what I like and don't like. And then I'm going to say, I am actually 2 people.
Oh my God.
CJ and Alex. You should store our art preferences in your memory and learn more and more over time what we like. And then what vibe do you think, Alex?
I like photorealistic.
Okay, Alex likes photorealistic. But what vibe do you want Ron to have in his personality?
Oh, sassy.
You are very sassy. There's also a great post by Peter on Twitter about how to get its soul up and running. And I like to say, you are very opinionated and you act on those opinions.
Love it.
Great. And we're going to kick him off. He's going to take this, ingest it, and hopefully we can actually get him to run through one of these tasks. One other thing that's always good to test once you have this set up is hopping over to Telegram, clicking on Ron John bot. We're going to hit start and we're going to say hi. It is going to give you this pairing code.
So
And
just so I
then-
understand here, can you talking to Ron in Telegram, is that the same as you talking to Ron in your terminal?
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
the whole beauty of the gateway. All of the messages can come from different places, and then all of them
Yep.
can go out in different places, and
Love
Ron
it.
can actually choose it. So Ron is online. Save this memory already. He's sassy. So we can give a starter profile, but first I'm actually just going to say, can you make sure you are configured for Telegram? Because now he's set up. He can run commands. He can actually manage himself, his own workspace,
Yeah.
his configuration. So giving him all this information, he should be able to just set this up for us.
Love it.
Sweet. So we're good on Telegram. I'm going to hop over here and say, hey, Ron, can you hear me from Telegram? And he's typing. And here he is. Same bot,
That's wild.
different channel. And we've done it. We've set up Ron end to end. From here, my only real tip in building this up is actually just dumping as much information about you as you can. really try to get it to understand who you are, what your preferences are. And the bots are really good at managing their internal state to try and get you to a point where it's performing better, it's doing more for you, it's actually acting on your behalf.
Love it. And one last question for you is, if I'm a busy professional or executive watching this, and I've now set up my run, my OpenClaw, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Like, what is actually a useful way that I can use OpenClaw? Just based on you playing around with OpenClaw a lot and just understanding like what other knowledge workers may like what do you think is the lowest hanging fruit of how Ron or their OpenClaw could be exceptionally helpful? That, let's just say they start with one use case. What is the one use case that you think people could feel the power of OpenClaw with if they get it set up the right way?
Yeah. So I like to think of it as, if you had a perfect assistant, what would they do for you? And in any of those scenarios, it's going to be very custom. That's what OpenClaw is strong in, doing these like custom workflows. You know, the basics of monitoring your email, monitoring Slack, helping you reply to things, helping you stay on top of stuff. I can actually show you my personal assistant, Alfred. I had him send me an essay that I think is about laundry to just push our message history up. But with Alfred, he is monitoring kind of my Slack channels and my emails and making sure to keep me up to date on my to-dos. And he even has a little task tracker of his own where I kind of made some of this fake data, but he actually puts things on here, messages me, keeps me on top of things. So whatever the simplest kind of task management way that you can think about handling tasks, organizing them, keeping yourself on top of stuff, trying to offload as much of that to the bot as possible, and then finding where it breaks. There are places where it's not perfect, but it can do a lot more than I think people give it credit if you just spend the time to play around with it. And when it does something wrong, ask it why it did it wrong and what we can do to make it do it right in the future. And the amount of things it can self-correct is still surprising me.
Love it. I feel like we're going to want to do a part 2 of this. That's all around like, okay, now that we have OpenClaw set up, how do we actually, like, if I want to configure it to be my perfect personal assistant, like we could probably spend like another 45 minutes just getting it to like be my personal assistant through my emails, my Slacks, my texts, whatever. So I think that would be a good part 2 for us to do. Yeah,
there's tons of, that's kind of the tricky part, is like setting this up is half the battle. But I think a lot of people get to that point, have it set up and go, now what? And there's a lot of like places you can push it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the first technology where it's always on and you can customize it to whatever use case you want. But there's a ton of low-hanging fruit that I think is easy to set up that can be immensely valuable to anyone out there who's able to set this up.
Love it. Anything else you want to share before we finish things up?
No, I think that's it. I hope this is helpful, and I hope more and more claws are hatched as a result of this walkthrough.
Love it. CJ, thank you so much. For those who are watching, again, look at this as like almost like a reference guide. Feel free to watch the video, but rewatch it as you're working through the process of setting up your OpenClaw. We're also going to include the guide that CJ created in the show notes so that, one, you can reference it, but also you can feed it to Claude to help you set up a safe and secure OpenClaw. And then more videos to come on specific use cases and applications in your work once you have your version of Ron set up. Thanks so much for joining, everyone, and we'll see you again soon. Later.